Welcome back to Families in Action, brought to you on our hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us, we have on the air with us today Sam Quinones, who is the author of Dreamland, The True Tale of America's Opiate Epidemic. And so, Sam, before we took the break, the United States is ripe and ready for a heroin epidemic as a result of the opiate being flooded all over the country, right? That's where we left off.
That's basically why, we're seeing heroin in states that would be surprising to most people, I think. Alabama, Vermont, places like this, Tennessee, rural areas, suburban areas. It's because heroin gets there because the pills got there first and were prescribed in ways that probably were, for some people were fine, but for a lot of people were just far too aggressive, far too without care for paying attention to the individual differences in each patient, or taking much patient history. For example, there was very very rarely do patients get asked, is there any history of addiction in your family? Your dad's an alcoholic, maybe somebody in your family had problems like this, to see whether this is a person who ought to be getting these drugs.
Well, I mean, we hear it all the time because we work with, we have treatment centers and work with drug addicts coming in, and we hear it all the time. It's just so easy to get these things. I could go out right now without even having any kind of history, even in today's world with, I think people are starting to find out about all of this and realize how readily available the prescriptions are. But I tell you what, I could go right now to a doctor and probably get a
what's scary? You know what's scary, guys, is 90% of the addicts that are recovering that end up getting loaded again, I wouldn't say 90, but a huge percentage got strung out on prescription pills because they went to a dentist or a doctor and something happened.
And I think what people don't understand is, or maybe they're coming to this understanding now, is that these pills are molecularly, the drugs in these pills, mainly there are two drugs, hydrocodone and OxyContin. OxyContin is in OxyContin. Hydrocodone is in Vicodin, just the drugs people might know best. These drugs are opiate derivatives. They are molecularly very, very similar to heroin. They have the same effect on the brain chemistry, the same euphoric effect, and it's important to note they have the same withdrawal. They cause the same withdrawals once you're addicted and try to kick. So that is why these drugs are kind of part of a continuum that leads to heroin. Once you can't find those drugs, once those drugs become far too expensive, and in most areas the price on the street for a lot of those drugs is about $1 a milligram. So if you're doing 200-300 milligrams a day as an addict, 100 to 300 milligrams a day is a pretty regular addiction. That's way too much than you can sustain. And so then that's why people seek out heroin. And the guys that I write about, the guys from Mexico, have made it so that they have solved really the addict's main problem. The addict's main problem is availability. How can I get it every day, 2-3 times a day? And these guys, with their delivery service, have made that possible.
That's it's actually incredible that they went ahead and franchised it, didn't they?
That's pretty much what it is. It's a heroin franchise out of one small. What blows me away, I have to say always, is that this is one small town in Mexico. I lived in Mexico 10 years. I'd never heard of Jalisco Nayarit in my entire time. It's a town of about 20,000 people in a county of about 45,000 people. The town itself and a few villages that surround it are basically the places where all these guys come from. What's also interesting about these fellas is that they're not cartel. This is not a cartel. This is a business model. These guys are farmers. They're bakers. They're construction workers. They're not thugs. They're not killers. They're not part of the Sinaloa cartel, anything like that. They latch on to this as a potential for maybe improving their lives, maybe coming back and building a house, maybe buying a car, something like that. That being a baker or a butcher or a construction worker would never allow them to do down in Mexico, and they just have fastened onto this system, improving it and changing it, adapting it as technology has improved itself. And so, and again, they started really not too far away over there in the San Fernando Valley.
And you know what you were saying last time too is they don't carry enough on them
These guys are nonviolent. They do not use guns. They learned a long time ago that if you're an illegal immigrant with say 15 balloons of tenth of a gram of heroin and you get caught, you're going to get deported. If you're an illegal heroin immigrant with that much heroin and you have a gun, that's 10 years in federal prison. So these guys are all about trying to look as much as like they're all about trying to look
small time,
low rent, small independent, small time dealers. They look very much like the workers outside of Home Depot, the day workers outside of Home Depot. They drive old cars, and they never have lots of dope on them. They never have guns. They're not shooting it out. What they provide is really fascinating, is not gunplay. That's not how they get their market share, like, say, the Bloods and the Crips with the crack epidemic years and years ago. They're all about customer service and branding and availability and making sure that the customer is satisfied and knowing that if they provide good customer service, the drug itself is so addictive and that it will create its own demand.
Well, and it drives. I mean, if I can get a fix of heroin for $10 versus a fix of OxyContin for $80, right? It's
a no-brainer.
And also,
huge difference.
It's as many addicts have told me, the dope is only a phone call away. It's a whole lot more difficult to find a steady, reliable source of OxyContin these days than it is if you're in an area where these guys have landed. Than it is to get these guys to come to your usually don't come to your house, but they'll come to like the Burger King parking lot 3 blocks from your house or something like that. They make it so that you, the addict, don't have to travel into Skid Row or go to some scary drug house or a motel or bar to get your dope every day. They'll bring it to you. That's why I say it's all about convenience and customer service with these guys. And they are the ones. The other thing that's fascinating about these guys, I have to say, I've studied them like a kind of a scientist almost for a while, is that they are the first ones to understand the pill market. When they went east right about 1998 to the eastern side of the United States, just as OxyContin and this pain revolution were really kicking off in that area of Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, all those areas right in there, that's where they landed. Very coincidentally, there was no conspiracy or anything. They just happened to land right when the pills were really being promoted and people were getting addicted in large numbers. And they figured out, hey, follow the pills. If we follow the pills, we will have a heroin market eventually. And that's what they did. And that's why they're in places like Charlotte, the Carolinas, because there's Nashville, Memphis, places like that, because there's just a very large pill market there too.
Well, and it sounds like because they're small time, it keeps them off the radar of the big cartels and things like that.
Also, that's a very good point. Right? That's exactly right. They are so small time that they are really not noticed. But if you're a cartel smuggling 100 kilos of cocaine into the United States, what do you want with a little franchise that's smuggling 2 kilos of heroin into Ohio?
Yeah, you're not really a threat.
Not at all, and probably the money isn't really going to be worth your while to tax or anything like that either. So I mean, these guys have skated under the cartel radar for a long time as well.
Pretty amazing. They really figured it out, didn't they?
They have just figured it out. It's kind of, yeah, exactly. I wondered at one point, do they all go to school or something like this? And I think what they actually figured out was just was by trial and error and seeing what worked and what didn't work. And they know that if you get caught, you got a lot of money, you got a lot of dope, you got big cars. You're going away for a long time. If you have small amount of dope, send your money home every week, very religiously. You get rid of it, you get it back to Mexico, and when the cops catch you, you look like a small time dealer, and that's how they have treated you.
Well, they are small time dealers. They're not selling big quantities of dope.
Exactly, except for that they look like they're independent small time dealers. What they really are is part of a vast network of these guys all across the country who together are selling hundreds of kilos of heroin every year into the United States. It's just that the little crews themselves are not doing it.
So again, anybody listening, I'm fascinated by this stuff, and I hope everybody else is, because it really raises awareness and gets our eye on what's really going on in the United States. And again, the book is Dreamland, The True Tale of Americans' Opiate epidemic. Sam will be in Simi Valley tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Posada Royale Hotel on Madera Road. Go on down there and see him, get your book signed, and hear it directly from the source. We have about 2 or 3 minutes left here, Sam. How do you want to wrap this up? Anything else?
I just say this, that I was a crime reporter during the crack years. That's when I started my reporting career. And there was no way you could avoid this. It was a very public epidemic, drug epidemic. There was a lot of violence, drive-by shootings, carjackings, a lot of guys selling crack out on the street. I mean, it was everything about it was public. The thing about this thing is about this epidemic or this scourge, whatever you want to call it, is that it's all quiet. It's all really silent. No one wants to talk about it. There's really very little violence that accompanies it, comparatively anyway. People die anonymously and quietly, and their families try their best to hush it up because there's this enormous, horrible stigma that accompanies this kind of thing. And my feeling is one of the reasons behind the book is to kind of try to begin to end that, begin to start talking about this epidemic, begin to start talking about what people can do, how to help families who are just entering addiction with their addict child perhaps or family member, to get people starting to talk about it, because the way it has spread is because the reason it has spread so badly is because people have not talked about it. It's been a kind of a quiet thing. Parents and families have kind of endured this addiction alone and in misery, and it's been this horrible, horrible nightmare torture.
That's why we say silence is deadly.
Exactly, and in this case it is very, very true. We're seeing signs of parents beginning to get together. There's Not One More, the group that's organizing the event in Simi Valley tomorrow night. They're putting together events like this and talking about it. There needs to be a lot more of that, and that's kind of another reason behind the book, to explain to people this is what's happened in our country right now, and hey, let's begin talking about it a little bit more. Let's begin letting each other know that there isn't this. There's ought not be
break the silence, and we'll save some lives. Hey, Sam, tomorrow night, what to expect? We have 1 minute left.
Excuse me, I'm sorry?
I said, Sam, what to expect tomorrow night? We have 1 minute left.
I'll be talking about the book. I'll be talking about my own experience investigating this story, which is a nationwide story, and I'll be hopefully hearing from parents themselves talk about what they've had to go through and how, what some kind of solution might be to all this.
All right. Hey, Sam, it's been a real pleasure having you on. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening down there in Simi Valley. And again, thank you. Thank you very much for calling in today.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for all you do, Sam.
All right, then. Take it easy now.
All right, listeners. This is Families in Action, brought to you on your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS. We will be back next week.